that's going to work. All right. So I would like you to imagine that I am about this much shorter than I am. So I'm going to use my theater background, and I won't use my transatlantic accent. Okay. Anyway, I will present this as Marcia. So I'm not going to try to, insert anything other than exactly what she's given us here. Be curious, be careful, be courageous. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves and the momereths outgrabe. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tugly wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with his head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy, O frabjous day, calloo, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, and mimsy were the borogoves, the momereths outgrabe. I'm quite sure the author of the poem, Lewis Carroll, spent a great deal of time choosing those words. In fact, he invented many of them, didn't he? The poem is nonsensical. The words have no meaning, and yet we know what they mean because they kindle our imagination. We imagine what the jabberwock looks like. We picture that vorpal blade and hear its snicker-snack. That's good writing. Yeah. The theme for this conference is finding the right words. That's the job of every writer. Every writer must respect his or her readers enough to take the time to get the words right. Sometimes the words flow easily. Sometimes we have to fight for them. Mark Twain is famous for saying, "A writer should use plain, simple language, short words and brief sentences. Don't let fluff and flowers and verbosity creep in." But he also said, use the right word, not its second cousin. I have a 3-point message for you this morning. My husband, a retired pastor, is quite proud of me. Actually, my real husband is also a retired pastor. But, okay, back to Marcia. So I broke the kidding, yes. There are 3 points. Be curious, be careful, and be courageous. As I put this address together, I have drawn heavily from a little book, Trench's Study of Words. It was given to me by a dear friend, and it's one of my treasures that has a special place on the bookshelf in my office. It's a compilation of lectures given to a Diocesan training school in Winchester, England, by Richard Trench, Archbishop of Dublin, in 1878. Dr. Trench talks a lot about the importance of word origins. I'm sure many of you, as you study the Bible, refer to the original language to make sure you get the true sense of the passage. When I first learned to do this as a new believer, I realized I was encouraging a curiosity about words that I had always instinctively had. I think it's my Irish heritage. Dr. Trench encourages it too. He quotes Samuel Coleridge, who said, "In order to get the full sense of a word, you should first present to our minds the visual image that forms its primary meaning." On page 51, Trench used the example of the word tribulation, which has come to mean, especially in Scripture, affliction, anguish, and sorrow. But the original word was tribulum, the tool used to thresh grain from chaff. Do you see how knowing the original meaning enriches our understanding of what the scripture teaches? It becomes not just a trial or an affliction, but something used by God to winnow us. Another interesting word you may want to get curious about. I think Dr. Trench is onto something here, and I would suggest that we should all be curious about the words we use. It's a good idea to have a dictionary of word origins on our bookshelves because, sadly, much has been lost in our understanding of the words we commonly use. Trench says, language is fossil poetry.
Oh, wow.
The beauty is withered by age, and the color sullied by too common handling. All language is in some sort a collection of faded metaphors. So what, you may ask? Language is ever-changing, fluid, dynamic. But there's a danger in losing those original meanings. Trench tells the story of speaking with a missionary who had spent his life among a certain people group who, in their beginnings, had a word for God, the Creator. But as time went on, the word was used less and less, and eventually was almost entirely lost. The missionary found only a handful of old people who knew or cared what it meant. During that time, the tribe deteriorated to such a degree, becoming so violent and self-destructive that they almost eradicated themselves from the face of the earth. Words are important. The true meaning of words is vital to our mental, spiritual, and perhaps even our physical health. Have you ever spent time with a group of people whose every other word is a curse? Were you aware of what that did to your state of mind and even the state of your physical body? I remember stepping into a room once where the very loud music was spewing such filth it almost made me physically ill. Words have that kind of power. But thanks be to God, the opposite is true when Trench says, a parallel process of purifying and ennobling has also been going forward, most of all through the influence of a divine faith working in the world, which has elevated, purified, and ennobled a multitude of words. These, which once expressed only on earthly good, express now heavenly good. When I recently attended my granddaughter's 5th birthday party, I found myself among a group of young families, moms and dads in their late 20s and early 30s. As I sat listening to them, I became aware that I did not hear one single F-bomb, but many words of love and encouragement aimed at the children. And it gave me hope for the future. We who are writers of faith are privileged, as Dr. Trench tells us, to not only live in that sphere of truth ourselves, but to draw others into it through our very words. They may be plain, simple words, as Mark Twain encouraged, but when they are taken in hand by God's Spirit, they can transform, even redeem. That brings me to my second point. Be careful. Did you know the original use of the word Did you know the original use of that word meant full of woe, anxious, full of concern? Oh, so thus a careful bed was a sick bed. A careful day was a judgment day. It also had the connotation of applying attention, being painstaking and circumspect, which is the meaning that we are now more familiar with today. We might want to ponder those words a while. As writers, we certainly must apply attention to the words that we use. We must take pains to ensure those words convey the meaning we intend, and we must be circumspect. Merriam-Webster defines that word as careful to consider all circumstances and possible consequences. Yes, it is important, especially as writers of faith, to consider the consequences of our words. I wish some of our modern-day politicians would heed that advice. In this digital age, when the words we speak and write can so easily take on a life of their own, we must be careful. I recently attended a local writers group where a woman gave a presentation on the need to be politically correct in choosing the words we use. I confess I found this a bit annoying at times. I was writing an article some time ago, and I used the word native to describe someone. I immediately began second-guessing the use of that word, so with a sigh, I contacted my son-in-law, who is Indigenous. He said that the word was borderline and might be considered in the offensive category, so I changed it. As I said, it annoyed me a bit to have to think about it. Aren't we a little too sensitive about some things? But then I snorted at myself, yes, out loud, because I have one of those names that people mispronounce in different ways. In my younger days, if someone called me Marcia, it offended me to the extent that I would refuse to respond. I've gotten over that, but it still grates when someone says my name in a way that I consider improper. Our names are important to us because they speak to our identity. Should I not then be careful about the words I use to name or describe or label another human being? Yes, indeed, I should. Indeed, I should be careful about all the words I use as I speak and write, because they too speak to our humanity. As writers, we know it's wise to edit our work, to be aware of the words we may misuse, words that sound alike, for instance, but mean different things. There, and there, here and here, etc. Using the wrong word can mark us as unprofessional or just plain lazy and result in a rejected article or manuscript. Sometimes, however, using the wrong word, known as malapropism, can be quite humorous. Did you know that the word malapropism comes from the name of a character, Mrs. Malaprop, in a play written way back in the 1700s? That's just a bit of trivia to stick in your already overcrowded brain. The comedians Laurel and Hardy were famous for using malapropisms to create comic effects. In one of their routines, Stan Laurel tells a captain that he heard the ocean is infatuated with sharks. Oliver Hardy is quick to call out Stan's malapropism, only to correct him with another. Not infatuated, he means infuriated. The correct word, of course, is infested. My poetic side rather likes the word infatuated in that context. An ocean infatuated with the living creatures within it tickles my fancy. We were once blessed to have a wonderful woman take on the job of treasurer in our church several years ago. She approached my husband in the lobby one Sunday morning to inform him that she had been contacted by the Canada Revenue Agency. But don't worry, she said. I told them that we're afflicted with the Associated Gospel Church of Canada. Yes, we must be careful with our words. Point number 3 is be courageous. Be courageous enough to find the words that take you beyond your own fear. A friend of my daughter's once had an amazing experience somewhere in Africa. She was taken deep into the jungle where she sat cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by tall grass. She had been told to sit very still. She could hear snuffling noises now and then and a grunt. When the massive head of a gorilla poked out between the grass, she was tempted to leap up and run, but she forced herself to sit quietly. The gorilla approached, moved around her, touched her hair, sniffed her shoulder. She remembered the instructions. No sudden movements. Keep your eyes on the ground. So she tried not to think of what those massive hands and arms could do to her. She tried to relax her shoulders. Another gorilla approached, then another. They investigated her, sat close by, grooming one another before slowly ambling away. The young woman said she let out her breath and smiled because, as she said, I had just won a great victory over fear. Writing coach Natalie Goldberg wrote, "A writer must be willing to sit at the bottom of the pit, commit herself to stay there, and let all the wild animals approach, even call them up, face them, write them down, and not run away." Be courageous enough to get to the heart of the matter that is rattling around in your own heart and soul, because chances are it's been lurking in the hearts and souls of your readers too. Oswald Chambers, who's written My Utmost for His Highest, one of the most popular devotional books ever written, has said, "The author who benefits you most is not the one who tells you something you did not know before, but the one who gives expression to the truth that has been dumbly struggling in you for utterance." Sometimes the truth is wrapped in darkness. We must have the courage to go there. If you're writing fiction, you want to go deep into the psyche of the characters, their wants, needs, motivations, their deep, dark secrets, the things that keep them from reaching their goals and dreams. You want it all to be wrapped up in the story. If you're writing nonfiction, you want to get to the core of things, to tell the truth, then make the readers ponder what that means, what it looks like in the living out of a real life. By giving them a story they'll remember. Stories are the meat of our lives, the things we can sink our teeth into that nourish us. Yes, we must let the gorillas come, and we must contend with the dark things. Finding the right words may lead you down a path that will not always be the one you want to follow. But God will walk that path with you and bless you, giving you His words both during the journey and when you come to the end of it. They will be words that may change a life, heal a deep wound, or just make someone laugh out loud at a moment when they desperately needed laughter. It is vital as writers of faith that we open ourselves up to that journey, walk in it, and walk in prayer, in curiosity, with care, and with courage, because there's an enemy of our souls who will do whatever he can to stop us from doing just that. So always remember, beware the Jabberwock, my friends, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch, beware the jujube bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. I'd like to leave you with another short poem by Christina Rossetti. It's called Uphill. I have to tell you, she has in notes, I intend to ask Susan Platt to read this part. Sorry. Okay, now I'm Susan. Okay. Me. Does the road wind upward all the way? Susan. Yes, to the very end. Me. Will the day's journey take the whole long day? Susan. From morn to night, my friend. I'm just going to omit the me and her. But is there for the night a resting place? A roof for when the slow dark hours begin? May not the darkness hide it from my face? You cannot miss that inn. Shall I meet other wayfarers at night? Those who have gone before? Then must I knock or call when just in sight? They will not keep you standing at the door. Shall I find comfort, travel sore and weak? Of labor you shall find the sum. Will there be beds for all who seek? Yea, beds for all who come. And that is those are Marcia's words.
Thank you, Tracy, and a thank you to Marcia for letting those words be shared.